What are the best poems for kids to memorize? Keep watching, and you'll find out poems every child and adult should know by heart. Okay, so you want to include poetry memorization in your daily life, but you're not really sure where to start. You want to have your children's hearts filled with melodious words and profound thoughts, but you don't know how to just pick a poem and begin just to get started. Okay, here are 12 poems that I think everyone, child and adult, should know by heart. Notice I say knowing by heart, not just memorize, because you can regurgitate words without having them sink deeply into your heart. But knowing a poem intimately causes you to think on it deeply, to love it well, and to carry it with you always. Okay, but really, like, who died and made me queen to say these are the 12 poems everyone should know by heart? Okay, let me backtrack a little here. Obviously, I know these are not the 12 best poems of all time. You could pick your own 12 best poems, actually. In fact, why don't you put those in the comments? What 12 would you pick? I mean, although it is true, I might fight a duel with you over some of them, like Homer and Tennyson. Don't kick those guys off. But these 12 poems are just some of my favorites. They're poems my children and I have known and memorized and loved in our own home. Earlier today in morning time, we are reviewing Jabberwocky again, and my little 7-year-old was running around the room enthusiastically reciting it vigorously, fake sword in hand. It was just a delight. So, taking a step back, okay, grand and glorious, I think all of these poems everyone should know. But the reality is these are just some of our favorites, and your list might differ. But give a try to my poems. Just give a try. You might find you love them too. But let them be a starting point. Choose your own poems. Get rid of my list entirely. The point is to pick something and start somewhere. It doesn't have to be the perfect list. And I think that's why I want to give these 12 poems to show you these aren't it's not the perfect list of the best poems of all time. This is just a list of a place to start. And how often do we let this desire for there to be perfection in our homeschool? We can't read aloud until we have the perfect book list, and we can't start memorizing poetry until we know just the right ones to start with. And I hope this list just helps you know you can just start somewhere. And then the more you fall in love with the idea of memorizing poetry and you get excited about it, it becomes part of your family culture, the easier it is to continue moving on from there. Because, poems are really different. Some poems are silly. Some are full of longing, love, despair. Some poems are really easy, both to read and enjoy and laugh at and memorize. And some are really hard. You have to think, what does the poet mean at this moment? Some poems are actually even a little disturbing. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't include them in our homeschool and we shouldn't know them by heart. But poems aren't all easy and roses and love. Poetry expresses all of the full range of human emotions. But, I think it's important for us to remember we don't know the heights and depths to which we will be called or our children will be called in the future. You don't know when they may need to cheer up a downcast heart or persevere through a trial. And so I encourage you to fill their hearts, fill your own heart, fill them up with these lyrical words of beauty that can be found in good poetry. Okay, so here are some good poems to start. I'm going to link below these 12 poems. I have a video from my year of memory work for each of those 12 separate poems where I recite the poem for you, and you can watch it with your children, watch it ahead of time, whatever. And I also have some poetry freebie printables for a few of these poems, and I will put a link to that as well. If you want that, again, it's totally free. You can check out my free year of memory work here on YouTube. That is 52 weeks of poetry, speeches, scripture, all these things of beauty, including the free printables, just to help encourage you. You can use it all the way through or just pick and choose your favorites. But I really encourage you not to just stop with the ones I've chosen. you can go on from there. Every month, I actually share the morning time memory work that my children and I are working on. I send that out each month. I put that up on my blog. And then every Monday to my email list, I send a weekly poem just for fun. And maybe one you just want to read that day, or it may be one you end up loving so much you want to include it in your own family's memory work time. There are just so many wonderful poetry options to read and love and listen and hide away in your heart. And so I hope that this video encourages you to get started, but isn't a boundary. I want this to be a freedom, like a place to start, and then go forth and come back and comment and let me know what poems you're including in your homeschool. Okay, so I told you 12 poems. You're like, are you going to get to the 12 poems? Yes. I'm going to read the titles here for you, and then you'll have to go down into the video description to get more details where I'm going to break out each of the 12 poems individually in the year of memory work. So here they are in no particular order. Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson. The Opening Lines to the Iliad by Homer, one of my favorites. Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. I mentioned that one earlier in the video. Totally silly and fun. Death Be Not Proud by John Donne. I really think it's a poem everyone definitely needs to know. Prologue to the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Be sure to watch that video where I tell a little inside story from my own childhood about that prologue. Casey at the Bat by Ernest Lawrence Baer. If you have a sports lover who's not so sure about poetry, that's a good place to start. My Shadow by Robert Louis Stevenson. The video in the comments for that poem is actually recorded by my youngest daughter when she was little. Psalm 139, 1 through 13. The Destruction of Sennacherib by Lord Byron. And Sonnet 116 by William Shakespeare, because what would a poetry list be without Shakespeare? All right, be sure to check the caption to get details about each of those individual poems, the free poetry resources I have, and then comment below and let me know what poems you're memorizing in your homeschool this week.